So this morning I am going to discuss a new bill that has been brought before our wonderful legislators here in Oregon and our Capitol building. And considering the Democrats have been controlling the state for far too long, and other quote gun control measures have been enacted, like the red flag, take your gun away, just because somebody calls and says you're a danger to somebody, and the police can come in and confiscate your guns without due process. So now we've got two individuals who have put forth this bill. It's called SB 501, and if you are a firearms owner in the state of Oregon, I would surely hope you would get informed about this bill, because it's definitely going to change things around here if this ridiculous thing becomes law. Number one, let me just state my case in this matter, and that's the fact that I'm a strong constitutionalist, believe in the Second Amendment, and that any legislation that would impede an individual's right under the Second Amendment are a violation of that Second Amendment. So that includes my stance on the National Firearms Act. I believe is completely unconstitutional. I believe the Hughes Amendment, signed in by Ronald Reagan in 1986, that eliminates the sale of, quote, machine guns to civilians that are made after 1986. I believe that's also a violation of our Second Amendment. When you go back through the history in the United States of the Second Amendment, you will find that people bought cannons for their private vessels to protect themselves against piracy. So we do have a history of civilians owning what today people would call a, quote, assault weapon. For that matter, anything used to injure somebody physically could be classified as an assault weapon. So the car driving down the street, purposely running into some kids here in Portland, that was an assault weapon, but we don't have people out crying for a ban on automobiles or background checks before purchasing an automobile. So anyway, let me get into Senate Bill 501 before I go down the rabbit trail that I've already started on. If this bill becomes law, it's going to require persons to have a permit in order to purchase or receive firearms. So the state wants you to have some sort of license that the state says, yep, you can own a firearm, and so you have to qualify for that permit. And of course, each one of these things, if you violate under this bill, has some sort of financial penalty and or time in prison, potentially both. And in fact, I would say based off of the dollar amount that they would fine you, it's probably going to be considered a felony, and then you would lose your gun rights altogether. But let me move to the next one of this bill. It would require persons who own or possess a firearm to secure that firearm with a trigger or cable lock or in a locked container. So forget about home defense. Forget about having that firearm beside your bed so that it's ready to be used just in case somebody breaks into your house, because it has to be locked up whenever it's in your presence. This sounds very much or real close to one of the laws in Australia. So yeah, I just think that's completely wrong. I believe that's also a violation of our Second Amendment. I don't know what more to say on that other than it's ridiculous that they would require a gun to be locked up, to have a cable put through it so that if you needed it, you've got to undo all of that before you could utilize your own firearm for self-protection. The next one is it would require persons who own or possess firearms to report to law enforcement agency loss or theft of the firearm within 24 hours. You know, that one I kind of agree with. I understand that one. It also comes with a fine and imprisonment, or both. Considering the dollar amount, I'd say this would probably be a misdemeanor. So that one I kind of agree with. Again, I'm a strict constitutionalist, so I think any laws that would interfere with the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms as it is written is a violation of that constitutional right. So even though I agree with this one, I would say no, shouldn't become law. the next one is it prohibits possession of a magazine with a capacity that holds more than 5 rounds. I'll give you some examples. Okay, I have several examples of magazines that, should this law or bill become law, they would be considered illegal. And in fact, let me finish reading you the part of the law. Provides that a person in possession of such magazine must sell or otherwise dispose of the magazine within 180 days of the effective date of the act. And of course, this is punishable. Looks like a felony again. So this magazine here, which of course most people would recognize, it's an AR-15 magazine, holds 30 rounds. Yeah, it's for my AR-15. Yeah, I do own an AR-15. This would become illegal. I have currently possession of 2 of these. One came with the firearm, and this one I bought separately. These would be considered illegal to have. Now I've got several other ones I'm going to show you here. FN57, completely unloaded. The magazine in itself is a 20-round magazine. This gun would become completely inoperable, as there are currently no manufacturers building a 5-round magazine. So this firearm, which holds 20, this is a stock magazine for this firearm, 20 rounds. There are some that hold 30. This one's a 20. These would become illegal, and thus I would have no magazine where I could ever use the firearm should I want to or desire to. And that includes going out and just shooting it, or for self-defense and protection. That one's illegal. Then we got our wonderful Glock 27 here. It's a 9-round magazine. This magazine would also become illegal, and this currently is the lowest amount in capacity that the Glock 27 holds. So 9 rounds, 1 in the magazine, for a total of 10, or 1 in the chamber, so 10 rounds total. So this gun also would become inoperable, as I could not purchase a 5-round magazine for this firearm. And of course, this would mean firearm manufacturers or third-party manufacturers of magazines would have to make a magazine that holds 5 rounds in order for this gun to be utilized again. So this gun, here I'll show you again, also unloaded, illegal. Then we have this one, my current carry firearm. This one is also unloaded, just so you're aware, completely unloaded, no rounds in it. This one has some rounds in it. I only have 6, but this current magazine holds 7. So under this law, even this magazine with a capacity of 7 would be deemed illegal. And again, my gun that I carry on myself quite regularly would then in turn become unusable, and I would be left without a firearm to carry. Should I desire to carry a firearm, it'd be completely inoperable, because again, the manufacturer doesn't make a 5-round capacity magazine. So here are 3 cases of firearms that I actually own that would become inoperable under this current law, unless I put 1 round in the chamber and carry it with 1 round, because I couldn't have a magazine that has more than a 5-round capacity. Under the law, I couldn't even just put 5 rounds in my FN57 20-round magazine, because the magazine would hold more than 5 rounds, and thus the magazine, again, would be illegal, and I'd find time in prison. Looks like a felony charge for possession of it. And under this law, there is no grandfather clause. So all these magazines would have to go. I'd either have to sell them on Gunbroker or Guns America and sell off the magazines that way, so I at least get some money out of them, or I have to throw away and destroy them. I believe that's personally a violation of my constitutional right to possess and own firearm, because in effect this law would make my firearms unusable. The only ones that I currently possess that wouldn't fit under this 5-round magazine ban are my World War II firearms that I have, the rifles, which have a 5-round capacity. So I could still use those, but that's kind of impractical to be carrying around for a concealed weapon for self-defense, as it's awfully long. And then one of the last ones on this bill that is really got me tweaked is you would no longer be allowed to purchase per month more than 20 rounds. Okay, so under this bill, should it become law, 20 rounds is the most you'd be able to purchase per month. But you also have to have a background check done every time you go to purchase ammunition. So here are some examples of what would be legal and what you currently couldn't buy under this current bill. So you could go buy a box of AR-15 rounds or 223, 5.56 ammunition, typically sold in a box of 20. Forget about buying the case, which brings the price down. You'd only be allowed to go buy one of these per month. That'd be it. And 20 rounds, target range goes very quickly. You could buy a box of rifle ammunition, oftentimes sold in a box of 20. That would work. This is for an 8mm Mauser. So you could buy this, but only one. So if you ran out of ammunition for your AR-15, if you happen to have a 5-round magazine, that's it. You buy AR-15 rounds. If you ran out of your 223 and your 8mm Mauser in the same month, forget it. You can't buy both. You can only get one per month. Another one, pistol ammunition. This one is currently Smith & Wesson 40. This would be unable to be purchased, considering this is a box of 50 and you're only allowed 20 rounds. The FN57 sold in a box of 50. This would also be unable to be purchased, as it's sold in a box of 50, not a box of 20. So in effect, in most cases, your pistol ammunition, and of course I'm singing to the choir here, to those who actually own and possess firearms and shoot them regularly, they know your pistol ammunition is typically sold in boxes of 50. Your rifle ammunition is typically sold in boxes of 20. Currently, there is no limit to what we could purchase. You could purchase as much as you wanted, as long as your pocketbook was big enough to make those purchases. A day of shooting at the range, you could easily blow through this entire box of FN57 within a matter of minutes. Your entire box of 50 pistol rounds, with the exception of having to load because you can only do 9 at a time in the particular firearm that I own, still a matter of minutes you'd be out of ammunition. AR-15, you could easily dump 20 rounds in just a few seconds. The rifle would take a little bit longer because it's bolt action, so like the Mauser 8mm ammunition would take you a little bit longer to shoot that, but again, matter of minutes, and now you're out of ammunition. And if you went out with 4 or 5 guns and you blew 40 rounds, 50 rounds, you would only be able to buy a box of 20. So somewhere in your collection of firearms, you would have guns without ammunition. That is, if you didn't have a big enough store to begin with. So that in and of itself, I think, is flat out ridiculous to put a gun or a ammunition limit on what you could buy. And I think it's even more ridiculous that you have to have a background check to buy the ammunition. So what am I saying with this bill? And I guess the best thing to do would be to contact your current representatives for the state of Oregon and try and get them not to vote on this bill, help them to see the unconstitutionality of this bill, and preserve the rights of those who are a law-abiding citizen. So here the bottom line is, for me, and I'm sure many others in the firearm community, and that's we have a right granted to us under the Second Amendment to bear arms. And the Second Amendment doesn't stipulate what type, size, or capacity you're able to possess. It says you have a right to bear arms. And the way I understand the law, and many others in the gun community understand the law, if I wanted a 155mm howitzer, I shouldn't have to get a request from the ATF and pay a $200 tax stamp in order to own and possess the 155mm howitzer. Granted, I don't have the money to afford one, but I'm just saying, in a scenario, if I had the funds to, it's a nightmare process to possess that. And so what's the state of Oregon doing? I think they're trying to make the state as gun-free as absolutely possible. And this is what we get every time our legislators speak of reasonable gun legislation. This is what they call reasonable. The bottom line is they don't want us to possess the firearms. They don't want us to possess any ammunition to shoot the firearms. And they definitely don't want to have us possess magazines that could hold more than 5 rounds. Ridiculousness. It would definitely change the way the firearm industry was here in Oregon. It's going to affect businesses, particularly in the ammo sales. It's going to affect them in the purchasing of the firearms because currently I can't really think of any manufacturers that sell firearms with a capacity of only 6 rounds, except for a few of your revolvers and your 2-round Derringers. There are a few firearms out there that have a small capacity. But the majority of them, if you went out to buy your striker-fired firearm, the majority of them are going to be, greater than 5 rounds that are sold in the stores. And it would totally change how you're able to purchase a firearm and whether or not you could even purchase a firearm. And I just personally can't imagine the manufacturers of the gun community coming up with magazines just to fit some bill in the state of Oregon. So yeah, get behind your legislator and hound them to not vote on this bill. I'm really hopeful that this bill won't even make it out of committee to where it would even have an opportunity to be voted on, because I foresee if it did, since the state is controlled by a Democratic governor, the House is controlled by Democrats, the Senate is controlled by Democrats, I see this bill passing. Probably passing with flying colors, much like the red flag law they passed last year, I think it was. And this is troubling to me because I personally believe the red flag law is unconstitutional and needs to be fought. But I don't have deep pocketbooks. I can't fight the state of Oregon. I can't take them to court over these bills should they become law. I don't have the finances to handle it. So there you go. Look into the bill and contact your representatives. Be boisterous about it, because this is a bill that's entirely unconstitutional on several grounds, because our Constitution doesn't say, number one, that you have to have a permit to go out and purchase a firearm. So that by itself is unconstitutional, and I would imagine that could potentially disqualify the entire bill. But I think what we need to do today is be very much aware of what is taking place in our state legislators as well as across the country, because the liberals are definitely after the firearms. They're going headstrong now at trying to pass all these laws that restrict capacities and ammo possession, and ultimately they don't want you to have a firearm. So there you have it. There's my 2 cents on this matter. Be aware and get active. Thanks for your time.